Hello everybody and welcome to Space Engineers Build Along. In today's episode, I'm going to be showing you how I go about building a ship. For the experienced builders out there, you might learn a few things. For the novice builders out there, hopefully you'll learn a lot of things. And if you've not even got the game, well, you're going to learn everything. Let's crack on. The first thing you're going to want to do is get a hotbar ready. So to do that, you just whack G and you get into this view. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click some of these items to remove them. That's how you use that bit to start with. Now, unfortunately for me, I can't remember what that was, but I know I'm going to need a radio antenna, drag and drop. Ore detector is quite useful. Something else would be useful on here is probably a reactor. Power generation is always good. That one, who knows? But it's a good idea, I think, to look at your toolbars. So I tend to, I think I can switch between them. I can. I've got one toolbar, which is basically just blocks, heavy and light versions of every single block. And that might even continue onto another one later, because there's too many blocks now. Yeah, there you go. So number 3, I've got some more blocks here. And then I've basically got conveyors, sorters, that kind of thing. So that allows me to pick most of those. And if I go to this one, I then have cockpits, batteries. I have aerothrusters. I don't have hydrogen on here. Mainly I'm building an atmosphere at the moment. Gyroscopes, definitely gyroscopes and batteries and cockpits. Everything else is kind of dependent on what you're trying to do. So get yourself set up with a few basic bits in your hotbar, and that's probably a good place to start. Right, now on to point 2. All right, so the first thing we want to do now is we need to get our ship building. Now, if you're in gravity, this is a bit of a pain. So grab a landing gear. If I put it down on here, it's going to be large grid. I do not want it to be large grid, so I'm going to hit number 8 because that's what my landing gear is bound to already. Boom. Get a small one. Pro tip. I look up and down, it moves away. Let's put this back to a small one. If I hold control and scroll, it brings it back to me. And another pro tip. Let's get here. So I can use the sort of insert options and everything else to spin and do things like you normally would. Let's try and get this back to something that's relatively straight. Now, how do I place this down? Because if I come down here, as soon as this block touches, it's going to go boomy and go to a big block. There we go. I knew it would do it eventually. Let's get back to a small block. However, if I just drop it, it locks itself to the ground. And that works for partially built blocks as well, for landing gear anyway. So that's the first thing you want to get done. Get a landing gear down and get some scaffolding in place. So what I like to start with is very simply put a block on here and then drag this back probably 15 blocks. So 15 blocks in total, that is. So down there. And that gives us something we can start building on. Let's talk about intended purpose of your ship. Now, this is a battery and a cockpit and a landing gear. I need a gyroscope so I can control it. I always forget them personally. I also tend to like to sneak them under here out of the way. So if I've got a gyroscope and I have a battery and I have a cockpit, then all I need now is one thruster. That's it. That is my ship good to go. Don't believe me? Well, let's find out. So in your cockpit, if you want to grab your landing gear, again, push G like we did earlier. Grab it down here, drop it on, switch lock. So, one thruster. That's it. We can fly. And I know that some people are like, but you can't move forward. So I'm tapping W. You might even be able to hear it. S, A, D, Q. Q and E still works. But this does work, because I can move forward like this. Just because you've got a thruster, you can actually get stuff to work. It's just you need to think a little bit more laterally about how you fly the ship. And I think that's one thing that we just need to bear in mind, which is depending on how you want your ship to function, there's always going to be compromises. The question is, what compromises do you want to make for your ship? Now, personally, I prefer to have a little bit more thrust control than this, is what I'd say. I mean, it flies, but stopping it moving is a little bit difficult. It's not impossible. It's just difficult. So I wouldn't recommend flying this ship regularly, but it's better than nothing. And well, I like it that much. I'm gonna throw it over here somewhere, and we'll just jump out. Cool. So let's leave that ship doing whatever it's doing, and we can go back over here. Now, while that is a successful ship, you really want to have some directional thrusters. Now, depending if you're building in space or not, you might want to think about which ones you want, because in gravity areas, you don't actually need down thrusters, but in space, you kind of do. Again, not necessary. You can always roll your ship over and fly in one direction. So bear in mind that what you do have on your ship is up to you, but I recommended you have a gyroscope. I recommended you have a battery, because nothing will work without it. And highly recommended you have at least up, left, right, forwards, backwards. If you have those, you'll be able to do most things in gravity. Optionally, if you're in space, don't forget to have down. All right, so let's come back to building our ship. So again, we're going to bring this a little bit closer to us. I'm going to rotate it around so it's facing the right way. And drop. Now, I like to start with a few blocks. So let's get this on here, and we'll just bring it back a few here. That's 11 blocks, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, let's say I want to build a very small shuttle type ship. Then industrial cockpit probably isn't the right one for me. I'm just going to drop on the regular cockpit. Now, I'm going to build this as an Earth-based one because I am here. So I don't need O2H2 gen. I just need some cargo capacity, and I need a connector. So I could throw on, let's go into here and grab these conveyor adapters. And these are actually quite cool because if we look, we can get different types of connectors. And if you look at the little picture on the right, you can see this has got on the back small connectors which line up, and that is a 1 block conversion. So now I can throw anything on here and it'll be fine. So I can come back on here, get a medium cargo container positioned, and that will connect. And that's pretty valid. Like if you just want to fly around in atmosphere, that's not a bad way of going, and you can make quite a small ship. Now most people aren't going to want a small ship like this, and I would highly recommend that you put an O2H2 gen on. And the reason for this is unless you absolutely are staying near to your base, or you don't care about having oxygen and hydrogen, then maybe not. It's useful. You can fill your bottles up in it. Again, recommended. Now, another thing you might want to do is throw batteries. I tend to just start by throwing a couple of batteries on each side. And depending on what you're building, 2 might be enough. Now, the next thing we want to do is get some sort of cargo on here. So we're just going to build a very simple cargo system of medium again. And we're not going to do anything more than 1 for this. I'm going to rotate that around that way. All right, so now I've got those in place. The only other thing I need is a connector. So let's see if we can find a connector. There we go. Perfect. So that is not too bad. And we get rid of some of this. We now have something that I think is not a bad little ship. We need some thrust on it though. Now, bear in mind, a ship this size, you don't need to put on large thrusters. You can probably get away on here by doing a couple of small thrusters like that. So we'll do 3 on each side. And there is power advantage to using different size thrusters for sure. And look, we're going to have 3 forwards on each side. So we should be able to accelerate quite quickly. And I imagine that those 3 will actually be fine. Now, one thing I tend to do quite a lot is I tend to put my left and rights on here. And I also put my stop typically on top. There's no reason for this. It doesn't have to be. It's just a habit I'm in, and I like to do it. I would say normally you want as many stopping as you have going. We have 6 going, but we're only going to have 3 stopping. The other thing we want to do is make sure we have at least a couple of thrusters here. Now, I'm just going to move these out 1 block. You see it's actually not connecting there. It will only connect there. So what we'll do instead, we'll just do this. So this will give us most degrees of movement. And again, throw a jar under that. That is all we realistically need. And this should fly more or less like a dream. So let's try it out. And I'd always highly recommend you try this. There we go. So now, compared to our last ship, whoa, look at that acceleration. You see the stopping is a lot slower than the acceleration. Just less thrust. That's all it is. Now, if I turn around, we can see the sign of reference. So I hit space. I go up a little bit slowly, but I do go up. I don't have any down thrust, but if I push C, I think I still go down. And that's because it just cuts the thrust to the up. And that's it, we go down. And it's that simple. Okay, so very quickly, hydrogen ship. Let's rotate this around the right way. Always good to have that little strut facing forwards. Now, if that does happen, just pretend it didn't. You know, start again. Yeah, that'd be better. Now, one thing to bear in mind here is different tank shapes. What I want to do now is just show you how to deal with different types of tanks. So let's get this on here. I want to make it as similar as I can. We're still going to have the O2H2 gen, and this is much, much more important on a hydrogen ship because you need to be able to refuel your ship. Can't be clearer enough. You don't want to be stuck somewhere with a ship that you can't fly. So get this the right way around, which is that way around. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to remove these blocks because I won't be able to fit a hydrogen tank on here if I have them on. So I need to be out of the way. Bang. A hydrogen tank is now there. We still want a cargo. Now, because that's bigger, we can actually go with a bigger cargo container. But at the same time, we don't need it. So we're just going to put a small one on. Now, I'm going to show you something interesting with this in a second. If I can rotate that right around. There we go. Let's drop a connector on. Where is it? Here. So this is more or less the same ship as we had before, but I've put a hydrogen tank in the middle. And we want to throw a couple of batteries on it. If I can remember where I left my hotbar. We'll put a couple of batteries on. Again, not necessary to have 2 batteries on this. It's not got atmospheric thrusters, so it's not going to be burning through it. Now, the things that we do need is hydrogen thrusters. So I have, somewhere around here, one of these. Now, a big thruster absolutely will be enough. I'm just going to throw 2 little thrusters on here and see if that's enough. Can I get that on there? Or I'm going to have to use my jetpack, I think. So one other tip, use your jetpack and you can get under things like this quite easily. That gives us 2 thrusters. Now obviously we need to have the stop and go thrusters. Well, there's our stop. There's our go one way thruster. There's our go the other. Now I'm going to put one on top here because this could be a spacefaring ship. And the only other question we have now is, let's grab a gyro. Chuck that under there. That gives us control. We've got thrust up, thrust left, thrust right, thrust down. Now we don't have forward. Now on this kind of ship, we do want that, but it's very simple for hydrogen. Grab a conveyor. We need the little conveyors, and I'm just going to use this angled one. And we'll have 2 on here, purely for symmetry. I don't need it for any other reason. Come back to our hydrogen thruster and drop it on. We've got 2 going, 2 up, 1 left, 1 right. Okay. Let's see if it flies. Wish me luck. We're flying. So one thing to bear in mind, hydrogen thrusters are more powerful than atmospheric thrusters. But we've still got everything we need here. We accelerate relatively quickly. And if I just try and slow down, you see it slows down quite slowly. Again, it's just because it's got one thruster. But let me show you something interesting. We've got 2 thrusters on the bottom here. So if we accelerate, see how quickly we get up. And we know, just saw how slow it was slowing down. If I flare up like this, see how I slow down quickly? That's because I'm using gravity and the thrusters underneath to get me there. And I also drop quicker this time. Much quicker because of the added thruster on the top. Oh, landing gear also, good point. It absorbs impact. Well worth having. Always worth having. Right. What's next? Right, now. Important fact. This is a mining ship. It's got mining drills on it. That's how I know it's a mining ship. But it also has atmospheric thrusters. And it's got 2 large cargo containers. So, things to bear in mind when building a ship like this. For every large cargo container, roughly, you need 2 large vertical thrusters. So that's why this has 4. And it is a dog to control because it only has 1 gyroscope. Where is it? There, on the front. So when it's heavy, it's a real pain to handle. So if I wanted to make this quicker accelerating, quicker at stopping, I'd need to add at least another 2 thrusters forward and backwards on it. The left and right, yeah, this is a lot of little thrusters. I could put big ones on there. Maybe that would help. But that adds to the weight. And the more weight, the more thrusters I need. So it's always going to be a compromise when you're building a ship. Now, this ship was built for Mars. And it works okay there. On Earth, it struggles a little bit more. Now, this ship, though, this is a Goliath of a mining ship. Look at how many gyroscopes it has. This thing will handle like a dream. Look how many vertical thrusters it has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, it does not have that many cargo containers, but yeah, it's got enough. This is a serious ship for flying around and mining. Yet to be tested fully, but we'll get to that. But these 2 ships aren't the same. This is a quick, easy build. It gets things off the ground, does a little bit of mining. This is very much do a lot of mining, all in atmosphere. So one thing these can't do is go to space. And they also don't have defenses. Whereas this is a little fighting ship I have, which is alright. It gets destroyed pretty quickly. It's more like a guided missile than anything else. Now, this has lots of gun turrets. And it has a connector. It has some storage, if I remember correctly. Let's see if we just search for cargo. 1, 2 medium cargo containers, so not a great deal, but enough to store ammo. This has hydrogen thrusters. It has atmospheric thrusters. Notice though, it only has hydrogen for the vertical here and atmospheric here. So this could probably go into space and possibly be alright. But there's no stopping thrusters, so maybe not. But this can attack things. This is what I'm getting to. It can attack things. It can't mine. This is a terrible, terrible mining ship. It's a compromise on mining ships. This is a terrible, terrible attacking ship. Doesn't have any guns. It doesn't have a great deal of maneuverability. This has hydrogen thrusters for greater maneuverability. So it's always going to be a compromise. And then you end up with this beautiful ship, which we built last week. It has some miners. It can mine. It has hydrogen tanks, so it can fly. So this is all hydrogen, so it can do atmospheric and it can do space. It has survival kits. So this is, it's got guns, so it's defensible. Now, the one thing to bear in mind out of all of this is building a ship is always about compromises. Like, let's grab another example. For example, if I want to mine remotely, let me see, I have a remote mining ship. Brilliant. Let's copy this one in. Let's align it to the atmosphere. I would hate for it to drop and do something silly. So let's rotate it around. That is the front, by the way, in case you're wondering. There's nothing else to it. Great. Oh. Yeah, see? Compromise. This is a remote miner for space. It has ion thrusters. This thing won't fly in gravity. So you're always going to have to make compromises and try not to make a ship perfect because you really will just struggle. Right, so what I wanted to show you is another compromise. This is a grinding and welding ship. It took me forever to build it, and I did it all in survival. It has some cargo. The cargo's in a bad place, and we'll come back to that for a different reason, but it welds and grinds. This version we designed as Mark II. So it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Look, we have hinges here for the welder and grinder for a specific reason. That ship struggled constantly to weld the ceiling and the ground because I couldn't ever get enough vertical thrust on it to do so. So we put hinges on, solve the problem. Space Engineers is a game about solving problems. The problems normally you cause for yourself. Now, something else that this ship's a good example of is test. Oh my god, test your ships and test them when they're in a functional state. So this ship here, although it's coloured, this is very functional. It's got the drills, it's got the thrusters, it has no blocks on it. Test your ship works now before you do anything. Test it in creative. In case you didn't know, Shift F10, you can bring up the menu. Just grab something that's going to be heavy, like cobalt or grids is normally a good one. I'm not actually sure what the heaviest thing is, but if I type this to a big number and heavily hit the keyboard because I'm angry, spawn into target container. So that is now full, and that's good. We want it to be full. Should we get some more in here as well? Let's see what happens if we spawn some in here. I'm fairly certain that at some point this is going to struggle. Now, this isn't completely full because we haven't filled this connector up either. So let's do that as well. I'm just going to click spawn. I hope it spawns something in there. Now, if I get into this and fly... Oh, very heavy. It turns. Forward acceleration's okay. Stopping, not too bad. Let's go up. Oh, see? Not too bad. This is actually quite light. If this was filled with ice, I think it'd be a lot heavier. But everything you do, it's always going to have a compromise. And you just need to bear in mind that testing your ship is important. So let's demonstrate this better. And let's get a slightly better view. Look at that. I'm not slowing down. So let's take this into a real world example. If we build up some speed. Now, it might be, okay, well, we'll just slow down. And we can't slow down because it doesn't have enough thrust. But that's fine. We got a lot of vertical thrust. And, oh, we missed it. But I guess that is now destroyed. But that's kind of the point, is do your testing. A lot of these ships, I test them when they're very, very functional still. This ship in particular went through a number of iterations to get it to be, I guess, fully working. In fact, I need to take a blueprint of this one. I must remember, because this one almost certainly does work. This one looks like a very early version, so I need to update my blueprints. But that said and done, think about what the purpose of the ship is. Think about what compromises you want to have in your ship, and just build and experiment. There is nothing wrong in Space Engineers with building several ships the same. Like I said, this ship and this ship, they do the same purpose. If it doesn't work, rebuild it. That's the joy of Space Engineers. Build things, experiment, see what happens. Now, with that all said and done, I'm going to call it quits here, and I'll see you in the next one. Fly safe.